Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do, to elaborate on my rant. Now, when I said somehow still a part of the deaf community, here's what I mean by that. I still support DEP. I will always support DEP, just like I will always support Sir Anthony Hopkins or any other of my neurodivergent brethren, whether they're famous or not. That's who I am, that's who I always been, and that's what I do. What I was referencing in regards to that is I began to start backing away from the community when the never ending constant drama and arguing tends to go on and on and on and on, and my neurodivergent ass got tired of it. And people just kept going. So, because of that, I began to back out of it and more towards my neurodivergent side of Twitter. And the reason why, folks, is there's not this ever constant, never ending stream of drama and tearing at each other like I've seen go on in regards to what happened there. Okay? I don't handle it well. I don't like drama. I don't like illogical knee jerk reactions. I don't like backbiting and fighting and using the very things that you learned could push the buttons of those individuals when you were teamed up together against them now. Okay? That's not me. That's not who I am. Okay? You all never did learn how to agree to disagree. Nor have you ever learned how to let a subject drop until more information became available. Okay? That's why I was backing out. It has nothing to do with the support of the man. He always has my support. Just like Andre and Jennifer Masumba and all these people, these neurodivergents for who I fight every single day, they will always have the support of me and mine until the final judgment trumpet sounds. Since we're trending World War III again, I thought it was appropriate. All right. I don't like drama. I don't like backbiting. I don't like making a mountain range out of a molehill. All right. To the disclaimers, if you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, you're going to find all the pertinent links right there in the description box. Please, in particular, take note of the article written by NeuroClastic, a small non for profit started by autistics for autistics. In it, they interviewed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read that article so much. They threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill, folks. Please read that article. Share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding just in case the JRC ever actually does see through with their threat. Trigger warning 1. When we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please make sure to go ahead and utilize the headphones, all right? Trigger warning 2. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is advised, all right? Now, if you see me kind of moving around on here while I'm talking to you all, I'm just removing my boots. I am done being out in the rain and cold today. No, damn it. I'm going to be 5 and I'm going to have fish sticks and fries. All right, let's go back to where we left off last time. This is the response to that nonsensical insanity we were just forced to read previously. Response regarding a temporary or long-term increase in symptoms. FDA disagrees, as would any logical person who understands that this shit can sometimes come in cycles. And even for those of us who have managed to, by some miracle, bring it down to a bare minimum where these behaviors don't crop up, but maybe once a year, if that, even in regards to that, it's still illogical because, folks, this shit comes in phases. It's the same type of trigger as the PTSD of a soldier coming home from war. That individual may be fine a good majority of the damn time. They're able to function, they're able to hold a job, they're able to be out in the community. And then that trigger happens. Because that's how PTSD works, kids. And when that trigger happens, a switch goes off. What do you think happens during that time, folks? Let me try to explain it to you as best as I humanly can. When that switch goes off, when that trigger takes place, I can't even really describe what the mental landscape looks like for anyone but myself, but I go immediate animal behavior. All speaking ability has been evaporated into nothing. All you are going to see is aggressive behavior towards inanimate objects and self-injurious behavior towards myself. It's usually extreme. Can take anywhere from a week to a couple weeks sometimes to heal afterwards, which is why I'm very happy I've been able to get that down to a minimum because recovery is a bitch. All right. It comes in phases. So just because you've seen behaviors go down to 0, and even if it's been 0 for a long time, that kid is still neurodivergent. Eventually, that trigger is going to happen and that switch is going to go off. Now, for those of us who are not just neurodivergent, when that trigger goes off, if you've been through horrific trauma, the intensity, the duration, and how bad it is afterwards. Like the increase in severity in the self injuries on the body, for example, gets worse after you survive a traumatic event or after you've survived and gotten away from abuse because of PTSD, because the triggers. Okay? It gets worse, not better. All right? Reducing behaviors down to 0, even if it's done for a long period of time, do not allow that to fool you into believing that all the bad behaviors are gone. They're not. They're never going to be. not in their entirety. The sooner you can wrap your brain around this, the sooner we can start talking about realistic treatment programs that will actually be able to help your kid go out there and live the same type of life that I do and that my nonverbal friend Renee does. Okay? But let's continue to read, shall we? Sorry, I got on my soapbox there. When the article cited states, however, by the fifth day of phase 1 treatment, self mutilated behaviors were reduced to zero and emotionally had returned to pre treatment levels. The article concludes by noting that the subject had become more incontinent during the waking hours since termination of the treatment program. In other words, this is the way the JRC see they need to be on the device because if you don't, then it starts again and it gets worse. No shit, Sherlock, you think? You ever think that after years and years and years of horrific abuse and treating someone like an animal, when that fear is gone, have you never heard that phrase, treat a man like he's an animal long enough and then an animal they will become? It applies here, folks. Okay? I can tell you, coming out of nearly a decade of abuse as a kid, teenage years, folks, teenage years, that when I would go into those self injurious behaviors, they were actually far worse in severity than they were when I was going through the abuse and having meltdowns during the time. It's a psychological action, folks. In fact, that is one of the biggest walking signs that we have PTSD that I can possibly point you to in regards to where treatment like this from places like this lead to. Because guess what? Not everybody handles abuse the same. Some, I don't want to say a little bit better than some of us, but there are those of us, and I include myself in this, who react coming out after having the time to compress, compartmentalize, and understand and wrap our brains around what had been done to us. That we become filled with unadulterated, sheer, burning hellfire rage. That was me, folks. Hellfire burning rage. Absolute, utter rage. Alright. Do you know how they tell teachers if a kid looks particularly aggressive, if they start noticing other things besides that, that the teacher should try to keep an eye out to see if there might be a potential abuse at home involved that might be causing the kid to act out? It applies here, folks. It applies here. You really think these kids, once they're away from that hellscape, are not eventually going to act out in some way, shape, or form? Let's talk reality here, shall we? Granted, not all reactions are like ours. In fact, for those who can wrap their brains around it, some blame ourselves. I had actually gone past the blaming myself point by the time I was finally yanked out of there. Just into straight unadulterated rage. There was fire in my veins. Let's put it bluntly, shall we? There still is, it's just been channeled correctly. If you know what I mean. There are others that respond with utter self-hatred, who actually believe the lies that they've been told and that they deserve what they would happen to them. That usually causes more self-injurious behavior, increasing in frequency, duration, and severity. Many indeed end up taking their own lives. Okay? That's why you have us talk about the very low life expectancy amongst autistics in particular, because so many do who go through trauma, and I have yet to meet an Audi who hasn't gone through trauma, take their own lives eventually because of how they dealt with that trauma. It is a regular ass trauma response that once you are out of danger and you can have the time to wrap your brain around what happened to you, especially if you go untreated for the trauma that you've endured, that either the aggressive behaviors are going to increase or get worse, or the self-injurious behaviors are going to increase and get worse, or you're going to be like me and it's going to be both. Okay? Now, luckily, we do live in a world where there is help, but so many of us have no access to that help. But that's subject for another day. Okay? You can't sit there, but it went down to zero behaviors when they were on it, and then it got worse afterwards. So obviously, the answer is to continue to torture them. Is not a real answer, is it? Nor can you sit there and say, but there is no other answer. So what do you expect me to do? I expect you to get a full functional behavioral assessment done, like should have already been done in the first place when the school first suspected your kid's diagnosis. I would suggest that you get rid of this idea of a miracle cure or a miracle treatment that's going to magically turn your kid neurotypical. I want you to be willing to put into practice the treatment programs at home recommended after the full behavioral assessment is done, dealing with the root causes that is causing the disturbing behavior, living in the reality that it's not ever really going to go away completely, and therefore work with the rational and real intention of mind to bring it down to a minimum so they can function out there in the real world. That would be my suggestion. We're going to close on that, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. Oh, no, sorry. We haven't even finished. Good God, folks. I'm getting ranty, aren't I? Let's continue, shall we? Okay. Moreover, the subject's initial reaction was an increase in emotionally and frequency self-mutilative behaviors. Accordingly, the FDA believes the commenter is incorrect. So they misread the findings. Who the hell is surprised? Nobody. Nobody, folks. Because that study noted exactly what I've been talking to you about in this video. That moment of wrapping your brains around and that psychological visceral reaction when that realization dawns on you of what has happened to you. Now we're going to close out. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So folks, you know the drill. Please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please don't forget to utilize those comments. I appreciate your time, folks. As always, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. We'll see you in a few minutes. Bye bye, everyone.